Good evening. My name is Councillor Helen Green. I'd like to welcome members of the public, colleagues and officers to this meeting. I'm chairing tonight's meeting, and to make managing the business as efficient as possible, I'll invite one person to speak at a time to ensure their contributions are properly heard. Therefore, do not speak unless invited to do so by me. Thank you in advance. The fire evacuation procedure is: on hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately using the nearest available exit. Don't under any circumstances use the lift. The assembly point is in the area of the Civic Office car park next to the roundabout, and you should not attempt to re-enter the building until it is known to be safe to do so. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or on silent. Members of the committee, visiting members and members of the public, please be aware that our planning committee meetings are always webcast live, and so any contribution you make will be broadcast. Please remember to use your microphone when speaking and turn it off when you've finished. This is important for the webcast because the camera will move to the next speaker. You only need to press the black button once each time to turn it on and off. Item 1 is membership. Please note that agenda item 5B, 24/1384/FUL 197 Darks Lane, Potters Bar, has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. And tonight we have Councillor Quilty substituted for Councillor Sussman. Item 2, communication and apologies. Members, where a roll call or recorded vote is requested, we do this with general members first, then members representing the ward the application is located in, and I vote last and exercise a casting vote if it's required. Visiting members and community advocates, I thank you for being present. Please make sure you alert me when you leave and re-enter the meeting so a note can be made for our records. Officers have tabled papers detailing additional information that have been received in relation to the applications tonight, and copies have been circulated to members and made available to members of the public. Do all committee members have a copy? Thank you. And I have tonight apologies from Councillor Sussman, and we wish her all the best. Item 3 is declaration of interest. Do any members have an interest to declare in connection with this evening's agenda? Item 4 are the minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of November and the 1st of December have been published. Can these minutes be confirmed as a true record and signed? Thank you. So item 5 is the planning applications. As papers for this meeting were published and provided to members of the committee 5 working days in advance of this meeting, to enable members to clarify any technical points, we've had a technical meeting prior to this evening. I'll proceed on the basis that members are well informed about the application before us, having received and read the report. For each application, it's custom and practice at Hertsmere for a member of the public to speak against an application and one to speak in support of it. If there are two speakers for an application, the person wishing to speak against will go first. Councillors who are not members of the committee may also speak in their role as a community advocate on behalf of residents if they've registered to. And this evening I have Councillor Sullivan, who will speak on item 5C. Members, may I remind you that any request for an amendment, a deferral or a refusal must make it clear the planning material, reasons and considerations for the minutes. Thank you. So item 5A is 25/1269/FUL, former Quick Co in Stirling Way, Boreham Wood, and I invite Lisa Page to present the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. This is application 25/1268/full, and it's at the former Quick Co, Stirling Way and Boreham Wood. It's a full planning application for the erection of a warehouse falling within classes EG3, B2 and B8, including altered access and servicing arrangements, vehicle and bicycle parking, landscaping and associated works, including the provision of a new substation. So just for clarity, Class EG3 is any industrial process being a use which can be carried out in any residential area without detriment to the amenity of that area. B2 falls to be general industrial purposes, and B8 is storage and distribution uses. So here is the location plan. The site is located to the southeast of Boreham Wood within the Stirling Way designated employment area. It consists of two areas, as you can see here, so the main parcel of development and an area of surface level parking to the east. The site benefits from two existing vehicular access points from Stirling Way. So the site is bound by Stirling Way to the east, whilst to the north is Hermione Court, which is in residential use, and Spitalfield House, which contains commercial uses. To the western boundary is an area of tree planting set on an embankment, beyond which lies residential properties. And to the southern boundary are light industrial and commercial properties, which are accessed from Stirling Way. So there's an area photograph here, so I have crudely drawn on the red line, but you can see those two development parcels. You can see that the site sits within an area of commercial uses of varying sizes. So there is some development in depth here with, bear with me, here with the BMW and the unit behind. And there is variation in the setback from the road. So Morrison's here is set back quite far with generous frontage parking. And what you can also see on this area photograph here is that to the eastern side of Stirling Way, the majority of these units benefit from surface level parking. So looking at some photographs here, we're looking at photo 1 is looking north along Stirling Way, so you can see the development site to the left-hand side and the existing means of enclosure. Photo 2 is taken from that southern corner looking across the development site, so you can see the existing hard standing, some of the rubble that remains from the demolished property, and the commercial and residential units beyond. Site 3 and 4 are taken beyond the northern boundary now, so looking, the left-hand side is the site boundary, this fence, and we can see Hermione Court there, which I've included really just to show the proximity and the relationship between that residential unit and the site. And then photograph 5 showing that surface level parking, and these are some of the trees that would be removed to facilitate the development. And photo 6 and 7 are taken from the western boundary looking east, so you can see that embankment and the existing established landscaping. So turning to the proposed site plan, the application seeks the erection of a single warehouse building of 4,872 square metres. It seeks a flexible mix of those classes, so EG3, B2 and B8, and this mix of uses would allow flexibility for prospective tenants, noting that the scheme would be developed to a shell and core standard. The application seeks to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The two vehicular access points of Stirling Way are proposed to be relocated. So one here would be relocated to the northern end of the site, and it would serve the on-site car parking and maintenance and fire track that extends to the rear of the building, and would also serve as the main pedestrian entrance to the building here, so you can see as annotated there. The other access point would be relocated to the southern end, and this would provide the access to this service yard. A total of 46 parking spaces are proposed, 23 on the main site, which would include 2 accessible spaces, while the remaining 23 spaces are located here to the east of Stirling Way. A total of 10 spaces would be provided with active EV charging spaces, and 17 provided with passive EV charging infrastructure. So that would allow installation and activation of EVC points at a future date. The remaining frontage of the site provides for 5 HGV loading bays within this service yard, accessed via this southern access point. The site also accommodates 10 short-stay cycle within a Sheffield style and 28 long-stay parking spaces, and we'll see some of the elevations for that shortly. A new substation would be proposed to facilitate the development, and that's located on the northern boundary, and within the service yard is an office plant area and the refuse provision. So looking At the first floor, the mezzanine would be proposed, included, and that would have 615 square metres, and you can see sort of the indicative office layout and associated storage provision. Turning to the roof plan, the roof will contain a total of 90 square metres of photovoltaic panels in order to reduce energy use and carbon emissions. This would provide approximately 27% of the building's regulated demand, sufficient to achieve an EPC A rating and secure a BREEAM excellent standard. So you can see the areas for the PV panels there, and on the northern facing slope of the roof includes roof lights to enhance natural lighting levels throughout the building. This is the south-eastern elevation, so the street scene, Stirling Way street scene elevation. It would be 2-storey commercial scale to a maximum height of 12.4 metres. The appearance of the proposed unit is a mix of grey and dark grey vertical cladding with a yellow coloured corner feature and curtain walling elements. And then just looking at the flank elevations and the end elevations, less fenestration. So here are the proposed cycle storage provisions. So as I've said, 10 short stay Sheffield style towards the pedestrian entrance, and along that northern boundary, a more safe and secure enclosed space. Turning to the proposed office plant and bin store, this is fairly standard and to be located within that service yard. And here again is the substation proposed along that northern boundary, which would be 5.5 brick-built structure. I've included here the proposed boundary treatment. So this sets out the approach to the means of enclosure at the site. So it shows retained and proposed external fencing together with an acoustic fence within the centre of the site. The parking area along Stirling Way would have a lower knee rail fencing, and you can see that set out. So there is a condition requiring compliance with this plan. Turning to landscape, the application submitted with a detailed landscape master plan, and this details an approach for areas of grassland and the planting of 21 heavy-set standard trees. So these are these circular, sort of smaller trees that are shown along this northern boundary here and along that public frontage along Stirling Way. I've added in a slide here just to pick up some of the comments from the technical meeting we had last week in terms of parking considerations. So as set out in the committee report, the development would provide for a total of 46 vehicle parking spaces, and this is a shortfall from the adopted and the draft standards. So it is expected that the development would have around 50 persons to be on site at any one time due to the shift patterns, and that is based on employment density guidelines. So the 46 spaces would serve the 50 persons on site. So the site is in close proximity to bus stops, and they would be served by 3 different routes. There's other public transport available with the railway station around 3 kilometres away. And as you've heard, there's adequate cycle parking provision to be provided on site. The application is also submitted with a travel plan which sets out a strategy to promote sustainable travel and targets for reducing car use. And the application requires a legal agreement to secure the monitoring and the review of that travel plan. So overall, officers consider that because of the strong public transport links, the cycle infrastructure to be provided, and with that travel plan in place, it could support the reduced provision of on-site vehicle parking. Members will note that the Highway Authority have not objected to the application, subject to the imposition of some conditions and that legal agreement. I've also just included again a slide here in relation to neighbouring amenity to pick up on some of the comments made at the technical meeting. So where my cursor is the application site, and Hermione Court is that nearest residential property to the north. So we can see it here on section, so the proposed building with the curved roof form, and Hermione Court here. So the distance between them is 13 metres. And again, here you can just see the proximity and the relationship with the building and those windows with the proposed development. So as set out in the committee report, none of the windows do fall short of the recommendation of 25% for natural light. And in relation to winter sunlight hours, only 2 windows, which are 184 and 185, which are these 2 here, that serve separate flats, would achieve 4%, which is just short of the target of 5%. So officers note that paragraph 130 of the NPPF is clear that flexibility should be applied when considering daylight effects on development. And overall, officers consider that there would be a relatively low impact in terms of this neighbour impact, which is related to only a few windows, and it wouldn't amount to a reason for refusal of the application. So turning to the summary, the principle of the development is acceptable on this designated employment area. The proposal would achieve a high quality development, and the soft landscaping would positively enhance the visual amenity of the locality. The development is appropriate from a highway transportation perspective. The Highway Authority do not object. The level of parking provision is deemed to be acceptable, as set out. 3 trees, small category C trees, are to be removed, but this would be fully mitigated by the 21 extra heavy standard trees. The development would not result in harm to ecology, and biodiversity net gain would be delivered. Flood risk and drainage matters are acceptable. And whilst there would be some impact to neighbouring amenity in terms of light, it would be relatively low, and as I've set out, would be restricted to just a few windows within Hermione Court, which officers do not consider would be reasons to refuse the application. And otherwise, the development complies with planning considerations in regard to contamination, air quality and waste. Members would have seen that there was an update sheet circulated, and that relates to a number of the conditions. So there was a typo in condition 2 related to the approved plan, so it should have been plan 1010. The boundary plan has also been updated to PO3 revision, and that's to account for the annotations for the heights, and therefore condition 7 also is altered to refer to that amended boundary plan PO3. And we have also added and amended the construction management plan to include some additional details relating to wheel washing, measures to control dust, dirt and mud, and then details of how that approved plan would be implemented and adhered to, including details of contact manager. And subject to those changes, our recommendation this evening is that powers be delegated to the development team manager to grant planning permission, subject to the receipt of the unilateral undertaking to secure a monitoring fee for the travel plan, and subject to the conditions as set out. And I will leave that layout plan on there because it might be helpful just to inform some discussions, but that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a speaker. So can I ask Miss Angie Fenton to step forward? Thank you. You speak on behalf of the application, and you'll have 3 minutes. If you just press the button. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. As you know, this is a vacant employment site located in an established commercial estate. It is designated within an employment area in the adopted development plan, and by granting planning permission, you will help bring the site back into full economic use, benefiting the local area. The applicant team originally met with planning officers in April to discuss the site and to provide an opportunity to input into the design and the site layout, which has been heavily influenced by the proximity of surrounding residential properties. The main issues considered were noise, daylight effects on Hermione Court and car parking. So with regard to noise, the noise assessment concludes that the development will have a low impact on the nearest properties. Notwithstanding, a 4.6 metre acoustic fence is proposed within the yard to reduce noise emissions from vehicle movements in this area even further. With regard to daylight effects on Hermione Court, the daylight assessment concludes that the proposed development has a high level of compliance with the relevant standards, and that the development is acceptable with regard to sunlight and daylight. And as your officer just mentioned, the NPPF also promotes flexibility when considering daylight effects in built-up areas. We understand that some members have raised concern at your technical meeting with regard to the level of car parking provided. The applicant and their capital partner are both very experienced in delivering this type of warehouse development. Occupier needs are constantly evolving, and they are confident that the proposed development meets the latest requirements from potential occupiers. It's ultimately not in their interest to design and develop a scheme which they cannot lease. An occupier in development of this kind would have shift patterns where employees come and go at different times. The current and emerging parking standards allow reduced parking on sites in accessible locations, and this site has very strong public transport links, and a robust travel plan will be in place to support the level of parking provided. Most important, the applicant and the capital investment partner are happy that the current parking provision is sufficient for the needs of occupiers, or else they wouldn't build it. So this is an allocated employment site with significant demand already coming in from businesses who wish to occupy the unit. The planning application complies with the local development plan as a whole and would result in important public benefits such as the creation of new jobs during construction and operation phase, additional gross value added of between £2.3 and £5.9 million per year, wage income of between £2.1 and £5.8 million per year depending on the occupier, business rate revenue for the council of approximately £190,000 per year, and up to £440,000 of additional employee spending annually in the local area. There have been no objections from statutory consultees, and planning officers are satisfied that this is a sustainable employment development, which should be granted planning permission. And we therefore ask that you support your officer's recommendation and vote in favour of the proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Officer, do you have anything to say? No? Lovely. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Morris.
Thank you. What is clear is that the application itself is clearly commensurate with the other developments in the area and the usage in that area. The one question that I have, which I'm a little surprised not to see, is we are seeing here a series of what I assume are articulated vehicles being used by the property or the premises. And my concern is that we haven't seen an example of how the vehicles, which it's a fairly tight road actually, how the access and egress, if you had one of those vehicles arriving and leaving at the same time, my concern probably revolves around the fact that the access and egress is really quite narrow. And I can't quite see how, if one is leaving and one is arriving, what is actually going to happen. It may well be officers have already explored that avenue, but I'd be very interested to understand how that is going to be managed, please.
Thank you. So the application has been submitted with the transport assessment. That does include swept path analysis. So that has been fully conducted to demonstrate that vehicles can safely manoeuvre in and out. The Highway Authority have reviewed that submission, are content that that is achievable. There'd be no adverse impacts in terms of highway safety or capacity, and that the vehicles could exit the yard in a forward gear. So, yeah, no objections in that regard.
Sorry, can I come back on that? Because clearly, if it's a single vehicle getting in and out and it's an articulated vehicle, there isn't going to be too much of an issue so long as the road isn't overly congested at that time. I'm not saying I'm against the application. I'm just a little concerned that in reality, and we do know that highways don't always complain about certain types of issues that we may have greater concerns about, but I won't necessarily go there. But I'm still concerned that we're not having demonstrated to us that a vehicle of the length that is being shown on that plan will be able to leave the property at the same time as another one is arriving, bearing in mind that if one is arriving, it's also got to turn round to be able to reverse onto a parking bay. So I'm not quite sure. If I'd been shown a plan that showed the sweep either coming into or out of it, I might have been a little more convinced. But at the moment, the access that is being shown is looking rather tight and is giving me some cause for concern. The general principle of the scheme I don't actually have a difficulty with, but I just wonder whether the question has been asked as to how the vehicles are going to manage accessing and exiting the property. But thank you.
Thank you. That's a helpful question. Thank you. So the largest servicing vehicle expected at the site is 16.5 metres. So those HGVs would be that length. So as I said, the application is submitted with swept path analysis that has been reviewed by the Highway Authority, who would have looked at sort of conflict with other vehicles and inconvenience if other vehicles were waiting to turn in, etc. What the submission does also include is analysis about how many of these HGV vehicles would be accessing the site at any one time. And within the committee report, we do sort of set out that it's expected that at no point during the day would more than one be expected to be present on site per hour. So I think, one, I feel like the application has submitted the details for that. The Highway Authority haven't raised any objection. And in any event, we're only expecting one to arrive per hour. So actually, in reality, the chances of 2 HGVs accessing the site at the same time is pretty low.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Well, this is exactly the kind of site where we would like to see such applications come forward. It's a very good use of a brownfield site, and to my mind, the very kind of place a new warehouse should go. It's good to see a new idea for that part of Bournemouth. It's an industrial area. It's already used by HGVs and many other parts of Stirling Way. And I would imagine from what we've heard that this would not be designed in a way which would cause HGVs problems, or else it wouldn't work for the tenants. I note that 247 residents were consulted and only one responded with any form of objection, so I have no new objections to raise, and when the time comes I shall support this application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gray.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And broadly speaking, I am in support of this application. I understand Councillor Morris's point about access and exits onto the road. I don't think that's the issue. The issue will come, actually, the operator will have to establish a kind of vehicle movement pattern once they're on site, and that's down to the operator at the end of the day, so I don't see that being too much of an issue. There is one or two points that I want to make, and look, irrespective of whether we pass this application or not this evening, I am disappointed to see so much fly tipping on that site and on that land. So while it may not be the agent's responsibility, I would like you to take it back to the landowner and actually remind them of their duties to remove and tidy up the fly tipping in that area. But equally, I'm very pleased to see the number of cycle storage and bike storage that are on site. I'm just wondering if we had a conversation around barrel bikes, though, because that is a large employment area, and obviously barrel bikes are very popular in Boreham Wood, and I wonder if there's some way we can work with the applicant to find a site somewhere close by to actually site a barrel bike parking space, because that would be really useful. Did that conversation take place? Because it's not necessarily about the money and monetary contributions, it's actually finding a space to actually house the barrel bikes, and I think it's sad that we have nothing in that locale really, but we have a lot of heavy businesses and a lot of users and a lot of workers going to that site, and providing that option to hire the barrel bike from, say, the station and cycle in under 10 minutes. I appreciate the volume of cycle storage on site for employees to use, but actually we do have a scheme, and there's very little in that area for that scheme, and I would like to see it extend into one of our major employment zones in the borough. But broadly speaking, I'm very happy with this application. It's nice to see it not suddenly springing up outside a bit of green land outside Aldenham Reservoir, etc. So I will be fully supporting this evening.
Thank you. I think there's some good points there, so thank you. I think the only point probably to pick up is the travel plan would include measures, obviously includes measures to encourage that sustainability and sort of sustainable travel patterns. And as part of that, the cycle provision and parking would be reviewed on a regular basis. So if actually the demand would be for more barrel bikes or more cycle provision across the site, then it would come forward through that sort of review of the travel plan. But that's a definite point we'll take up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carser.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm quite happy to see such a proposal come forward, especially as this is part of my ward. I've always been of the view saying that any application that comes that addresses a kind of derelict site is good news. But I'm also glad, Lisa, that you addressed the dust issues that we highlighted on the technical meeting with the new condition. So I think with everything being addressed, I think when the time comes, Chair, I'd be happy to propose.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Richards was.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just sort of going back on the Beryl situation. I think the nearest docking seems to be a Farriers Hall Community Centre, which is obviously, as Councillor Gray says, it's a little bit far away to be that straightforward. What I like about the scheme is half the roof area covered by solar panels, the remaining half allowing natural light, which also will help with the efficient use of energy. I think going back on the car parking area, if that's in use and there's various shift patterns, then hopefully that will mitigate against some of the terrible fly tipping that we've seen in that area. So, and also I like the tree planting because there's a distinct lack of greenery in that area. So I agree with colleagues that have said that when the time comes, I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Gray?
Well, I'm not a great fan of pre-booking your slot for moving the motion, so I was putting my hand up to actually move that we accept officers' recommendations.
Councillor Brisky wished to speak, and then thank you. I'll come back to that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very, very broadly supportive of the application before us. I think it is a good scheme overall, and Sterling Way is ultimately industrial, and it's been designated as industrial within our local plan. However, I'm not entirely satisfied by the response from officers in terms of parking. I feel like our parking standards have somehow weakened in recent years. I'm not sure why. I know there's a shift towards sustainable travel, but unfortunately, I would disagree that this site is well served by public transport. It's quite far from the station. I think there's the 292 that goes nearby, and maybe one or two other Hertfordshire buses. However, I would highlight my concerns about the parking, because anyone who has driven up Sterling Way, who lives in South East Boreham Wood, like I do, thinking that traffic will be quicker to get onto the A1 from there rather than up through Barnet Lane, will know that you have to weave in and out of cars because parking is not controlled on Sterling Way. And the traffic is often very bad on that road, and it does cause problems. So my concern, given that parking is not controlled on Sterling Way, that this could exacerbate the existing parking problems on the road. That could exacerbate existing problems with congestion on that road. However, I'm not going to oppose the application based on that alone. However, I would like to highlight to officers that I think our parking standards need to be taken a little bit more seriously in the future, because I feel like they've almost been disregarded in most applications we deal with these days.
Your comments are noted, thank you, sir. So, Councillor Allen, did you wish to propose?
Why not?
Yes.
I propose
That we accept officer's recommendation? And who would like to second? Councillor Carser, thank you. Sorry. I wish to let everyone have their say, sorry.
I've been moved, not the application.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We shall vote on it.
Thank you. So the recommendation is set out in the report, subject to the updates. So if I could take the vote, it's for, against, or abstaining. Councillor Allen?
for.
Councillor Amaron?
For.
Councillor Brisky?
For.
Councillor Gray?
For, with urgent action on fly tipping. Thank you.
Councillor Lambert?
For.
Councillor Morris?
For.
Councillor Quilty? Councillor Richards?
For.
Councillor Rosehill?
For.
Councillor Smith? For. Councillor Kazal?
For.
Councillor Green?
For.
That's unanimous. That recommendation has been carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next application is 5C, 25/0250/FUL 96 Torrington Drive, Potters Bar. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I will invite Caitlin to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the proposed development is for the conversion of a garage first floor side extension, part single, part two-storey rear extension, a loft conversion which includes a rear dormer and hip to gable alteration, and these are to facilitate the subdivision of the single dwelling into two 3-bed flats. The reason for committee is it has been called in by Councillor Sullivan on the grounds of residential development standards, car parking standards, highways issues and refuse storage. So here is an aerial view of the site. The site comprises of a 2-storey semi-detached dwelling with an existing front porch, garage and side extension with a front driveway, small front garden and a single-storey rear extension. As you can see, there are examples of 2-storey side extensions, hip to gable alterations, rear dormers, 2-storey rear extensions within the street scene. There are also many frontages that consist of full front driveways with some that retain partial soft landscaping to the front. So here are some couple of site photos. The first floor side extension would sit on top of the existing garage, which is proposed also to be converted. And here is photos of the rear, where you can see similar examples of extensions on the neighbouring properties. So here you can see the existing and proposed ground floor plans. So the proposed development, as stated, is for a number of extensions, which will facilitate the subdivision of a single dwelling to two 3-bed flats. One flat would be on the ground floor and one on the first floor and into the loft level as well. The existing setting from the side boundary would be retained. Would be retained. The rear element would not extend further than the existing rear extension. The driveway would accommodate 3 parking spaces as well as sufficient bin storage. The rear garden would also be divided into 2, providing sufficient private amenity space for each flat, which also include their own private access and also includes cycle storage. Oops. The principle of development is considered acceptable as the application site is located within the settlement boundary of Potters Bar, also within an urban residential area where housing development is supported in principle, and the proposal would encourage the efficient use of land. So here are also some existing and proposed first floor plans. The first floor, as I said, including the second flat, as well as the loft as well. So here are the existing and proposed elevations. No concerns were raised in relation to impact on character and appearance. The proposed extensions were considered subservient and compliant with the design guide, with there being many similar examples within the street scene. As brought up at the technical meeting, following a planning history search, there were no applications or permissions for subdivisions of properties into flats within the immediate surrounding area. In terms of residential amenity, no concerns were raised with regards to the impact on the existing properties and the future occupiers. Each flat meets the minimum space standards, and the external private amenity land also exceeds the minimum requirement. The 45-degree lines are not breached at both ground and first floor level, and so therefore there are no concerns with regards to impact on light and outlook. The first floor side-facing windows would serve a bathroom and an ensuite, and they have also been conditioned to be obscured glazed and non-opening below an internal finished floor level of 1.7 metres. Therefore, there are no concerns raised with regards to impact on overlooking or loss of privacy. In terms of car parking and highway safety, no objections were raised by HBC Highways, who have advised that visibility is considered to be achievable and that there is sufficient space for the provision of 3 parking spaces to be accessed via the existing drop curb. The additional habitable space is unlikely to result in a material increase in additional vehicle trips. There is a shortfall of 1 space as per the parking standards SPD 2014. However, due to the sustainable location and on-street parking availability, it is considered acceptable. Just to summarise then, so obviously the key considerations included the principle of development, which is considered acceptable. No concerns were raised with regards to character, appearance or residential amenity. No objections were raised from highways. No objections or concerns raised in regards to trees, landscape and ecology. The site is in flood zone 1. There was no concerns raised there. And in terms of waste storage, no concerns were raised. As following the amended plans, the refuse storage was in accordance with the waste standards. Therefore, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. So we have speakers on this application. Can I call, is it Jay Hegarty? Thank you, sir. To speak against the application, you will have 3 minutes. Just press the button. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. I read through the officer's report for this, and I found that there was a couple things that weren't exactly to fact, essentially. 96 sits a little higher than 98, which if you're going to put a 2-story extension with a gable roof conversion onto this house, it's going to lord over that other house that sits right next door to it, which will, in spite of what it says in the application, limit for a large part of the year. It'll block light out to windows and overshadow 98 Torrington. The hip to gable conversion on 94 Torrington is mentioned as the reason that they are allowed to rebalance the facade of the semi-detached house. The report states the proposed first floor side extension and hip to gable would not be considered out of character with the street scene, with a number of similar examples at and lists 11 different properties. The problem is that only 3 of those include a hip to gable conversion. The other 8 have just a hip roof on top of that extension. So that factually just kind of falls into a realm of overstating what is actually true. They stated that the 3 instead of 4 parking spaces is considered acceptable. However, the space, once you add in the additional refuse bins, which is 8, which is an unsightly thing for most areas to have to deal with, that doesn't, it limits, if you look at that drawing, it's a very nice drawing, but it doesn't fit how cars drive, how you'd be able to pull in or pull out of that driveway, especially considering there's a parking space right in the very front of it. I also ask that if you were to grant permission for this, you'd add provisions that limit bike storage from being moved from the back of the property to the front, which is something that this developer's done recently at a 10-bedroom HMO property over on Oakmere Avenue, which took up spaces that were required parking spaces. At the end of this, it essentially states that the council's 5-year housing land supply and chronic under-delivery of housing, this proposal to subdivide this property, is considered an important benefit of the scheme. I'm not sure that the community should have to absorb this overdevelopment of properties to accommodate the lack of this under-delivery of housing by the council. I do also add a separate question. How much time do I have left? 30 seconds. Okay, perfect. By applying this to allowing to separate these into 2 flats, does that, I asked the planning committee, does that actually turn that into 2 separate entities, which would limit the ability for full planning, like if that whole house was to be turned into an HMO, and that's all hypothetical that you guys can't address, I understand. Does that limit the ability, are those seen as 2 separate entities that would fall under permitted development that wouldn't have to answer to the sui generis full planning application?
Thank you, sir. Your question may well be asked by others, but I thank you very much for your input. Can I now call Mr. Josh Myers? Thank you, sir. To speak for the application. Thank you. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, chairs and members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Josh Myers, planning agent for this application. This proposal seeks permission for modest extensions and alterations to create 2 high-quality C3 family dwellings. Officers have reviewed the scheme comprehensively and recommended approval. I would like to summarise briefly why the proposal fully accords with planning policy. Hertsmere is currently unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, which triggers the National Planning Policy Framework presumption in favour of sustainable development. Delivering 2 well-designed family homes in a sustainable residential location makes efficient and beneficial use of land and directly contributes towards meeting identified housing needs. The design responds sensitively to the established character of Torrington Drive. Similar side extensions and roof enlargements exist at numerous properties along the street. The proposed dormer is well contained, remains subservient, and officers confirm that the development sits comfortably within the local context without causing harm to visual amenity. The proposal has been carefully designed to protect neighbouring homes. It meets the 45-degree rule on both sides, avoids harmful loss of light or outlook, and positions side windows as obscure glazed openings only. Internally, both new dwellings significantly exceed the national described space standards and enjoy generous private gardens, providing high-quality living accommodation. Highway officers raised no objections. All 3 parking spaces meet the council's required dimensions and can be accessed independently. While there is 1 space shortfall, the National Planning Policy Framework makes clear that development can only be refused on highway grounds where impacts would be severe, which is not the case here. Cycle storage for both units is also included. The proposal results in 2 high-quality family homes, causes no undue impacts to neighbours or the character of the area, and complies with the development plan when read as a whole. Officers have recommended approval based on a robust and evidence-led assessment. For these reasons, we respectfully ask members to support the officer recommendation and grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So I now call on Councillor Sullivan as community advocate against the application. You will have 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I called in this application for consideration. I know this town and this road well. Torrington Drive is not a town centre location. While it is conveniently located for a local primary school, by 6 p.m. this road is heavily parked, reflecting normal residential pressures, and it's a 40-minute walk to the bus garage on the high street. My focus is on the continued inaccuracies and deficiencies in this application regarding parking and waste storage. Hertsmere's Parking Standards SPD and HBC consultee comments indicate there should be space for 4 cars, reflecting the needs of a 2-flat development with 3 bedrooms each. The proposed layout fails both SPD guidance and highways advice, as this application shows questionable parking for just 3 cars. Hertfordshire County Council had asked for vehicle tracking in relation to the existing drop curb. The applicant has now submitted tracking diagrams. However, even these revised diagrams are misleading, assuming perfect manoeuvring through the narrow drop curb, which is not achievable in practice. I ask, are these checked and verified, and if so, by whom? I can see no comments from highways after the tracking has been provided for further scrutiny. I urge the committee to draw this layout as I speak, to see that the proposed parking arrangement is unrealistic and unsafe, and to refer to the revised tracking diagrams in the portal under the latest amended plan. I took these measurements myself and did some basic maths. The total frontage is 9.3 metres, including a 1.2 metre deep bin store on the left as you look at the property, which is not part of the parking area, leaving 8.1 metres available for 3 cars. There's a drop curb vehicle access of 3.05 metres wide, and this is the only access point. The average UK car width is 1.8 metres, with recommended 0.6 metres clearance per car door for opening. Even with 8.1 metre frontage, the narrow 3.05 metre drop curb severely limits safe vehicle ingress and egress for 3 vehicles, especially with cars owned by different residents. Let's take the 3 cars and the minimum space that they will take up. 1.8 metres plus 0.6 metres clearance for just 1 door per car is 2.4 metres. Times that by 3 and you get 7.2 metres. The remaining 0.9 metres on the frontage must allow the following: safe pedestrian access to the front door, side alley access, movement of bins from the store to the curbs, and access to the bins by residents of the 2 flats. And remember, when this is a single household, you can manoeuvre and navigate vehicles to get your bins out, but this is a shared driveway. So how will this work? The diagram offered to you shows a larger gap between car 1 by the bin store on your left and car 2, and we've already established with my maths that this isn't possible unless cars 2 and 3 will be touching. This layout is policy deficient. The proposal includes 6 240-litre wheelie bins plus food caddies. The bins are to be kept into a 1.2 metre deep bin store on the left-hand side. And the application states no hedges or vegetation would be removed, yet this is impossible. I have a photo that there is an established hedge and vegetation on the left-hand side when looking at the property from the pavement. To accommodate the bin store, this must be removed. With cars parked as proposed, moving bins safely is impossible. In fact, even putting something into Flat 2's bin store will be impossible with a car parked right next to it. This breaches guidance, which requires refuse storage to be accessible, convenient and safe. These are small homes, perfect for families, and are part of the essence of Potter's The Potter's Society believes this proposal is an overdevelopment of the site. The Officer report in paragraph 8.35 is a minimum assumption of occupancy. Flat 1 shows 1 double room and 2 singles, which could accommodate 4 persons. Flat 2 shows 1 double, 1 single, plus accommodation for a double room in the loft, given a potential increase of 5 persons, not 3. The driveway, bin store and front doors occupy a narrow frontage. The combination of car width, door opening clearance, front door step, bin storage and side alley access makes the proposed layout unsafe and unworkable. In summary, this application is unsafe and, in my opinion, policy deficient. Parking layout is impossible, unsafe and fails SPD and HCC policy. Bin storage obstructs access and movement. Officer assumptions about occupancy are understated, underestimating demand on parking and bins. And there is removal of some soft landscaping to the left, losing biodiversity and character. For these reasons, I respectfully request that the committee refuse this application in the interest of safety, accessibility and preservation of Torrington Drive's character and its essence as a family-friendly part of Potter's Bar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Officers, do you have any comments before I ask? No. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Quilty.
Thank you. If I remember rightly, it's a long time ago since I did a driving test, but the highway code says you have to drive out from a property in first gear, not reverse out. Now, I'm interested to know whether the officers can advise me how all these cars can turn around in the space that's available. Thank you.
So the HCC Highways commented that the existing access would be retained and the current arrangement of not being able to both enter and leave the highway in forward gear is generally acceptable in the context of an unclassified local access road environment, which is applicable in this case.
Sorry, I hear what you say, but I'm still confused. If you happen to try and if you're in the property on the bottom car, to try and reverse out there, if the middle car is slightly bigger, say it's the same make of car that I have, and it'd be slightly longer as well, it would be very, very difficult to get past it. To try and reverse out there, it's going to be very, it's complete, I don't know, these is fine if they're all minis, but if they happen to be bigger cars, big cars, like I have, I think it's going to be virtually impossible. And therefore, I'm extremely uncomfortable about this application.
Yes, it's okay. Yes, one person at a time. Yes, thank. We are indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Paul, did you want to speak?
So following the first iteration of Highways comments, they did provide tracking. And so the Highways comments that are in the report are following the amended plans that included that information. And they were satisfied that all 3 parking spaces could be accessed independently via the existing rock curb.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Perhaps I've missed it completely, but at the technical meeting last week, I specifically asked, because the inference was that this has happened to a number of houses in this area, I specifically asked for a report of what's happening to nearby houses. And when it didn't appear on the update sheet, I did email the planning officer and was assured that it would be covered in the presentation. I'm not sure, I mean, perhaps I missed it, but I would like details of what other houses in the immediate vicinity have had this sort of conversion, because I really think without some precedents, I have grave doubts about whether this is practical. I mean, it is a small frontage, and squeezing 2 3-bedroomed flats into the house I find a bit difficult.
I believe the officer did answer your question, but I will let her speak. Yes, certainly.
Yeah, I did mention in verbally in the presentation, but in terms of examples of there being conversions, subdivisions of houses into flats within the street, there were no examples that got flagged on the planning history search in that immediate vicinity. And in terms of, as I said, both flats meet and exceed natural space standards as well.
Are these ones that were built as flats, or have they been conversions?
No, so there's not been any conversions of single dwellings into 2 flats within the immediate vicinity following a planning history search.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else they want to ask? Yes, Councillor Richards.
Yeah, I mean, I can come to comments a bit later, but a question, just relay, I guess, from the resident in terms of those 11 or so nearby extensions, for clarity of whether they were indeed only 3 hip to gable. If you could clarify that, please. And then I have some comments later.
Yeah, that's fine. So the list of examples were referring to not necessarily both 2-storey side and hip to gables. It was general examples of hip to gables as well as 2-storey side extensions.
Thank you. Sorry, I think Councillor Morris was next and then Councillor Gray.
Thank you. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the drawings. However, I'd like to focus on 2 things. Firstly, what feedback have we had from our refuse collection officers regarding how they're going to remove waste from the site? And linked to that is the issue over, I'm assuming, those rectangles at the top of waste bins. And I'd be very interested to know how the first 3 waste bins could be removed whilst the vehicles are there. And the vehicles tend to be there when you're at home. And I can't quite work out how you get your waste bins out unless you're going to park in some peculiar ways. So I'd like to obtain some additional clarity on that, please.
There we go. I think I voted instead. In terms of the waste collection, so the waste team were consulted, raised no objection to the application that suitable waste can be collected. As is common with most residential properties, you would present your bin on the pavement or at the entrance to the property for bin collection, then you would place it back when it's been collected and disposed of, as is common with all residential properties. So it would be the responsibility of the people residing there to present their bin for collection on waste collection days.
That is what I expected you to say, but I'd still like to know how you're supposed to get the first 3 waste bins out with the car there, please.
Possibly move the car?
That would be for the applicant or the owner, the people who are there, to move the car to get the bins out when is necessary, as as I do at my property and other people do on bin collection day, then put it back afterwards.
So to just clarify, as drawn, you are incapable of removing those bins unless you remove the car first. Is that correct?
Come in on that.
There's sufficient space within the front of the property for 3 cars to be parked, according to the the dimensions for parking bays. So, as I said, they will just have to there'll be some movement, or depending on how they've parked, they'll need to accommodate to be able to get the bins out.
Sorry to be picky, but we have to judge based on what we're being shown. And at the moment, what we're being shown is a situation where 3 cars are parked, one of which is across the waste bins, which cannot be removed unless the car to the top, and it may well be, incidentally, that the person that owns that car happens to be away on holiday whilst the bins are being removed. So I don't think it is acceptable to leave it to everybody else to worry about. Either you can get the bins out or you can't in the way that they've been presented. Not that sometimes somebody's going to have to move their car. So at the moment, I don't see that that is a satisfactory solution.
Thank you, Kes. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions for the officer, if you could. Can you confirm that obviously internal and external space standards are acceptable? There's no breaching of the 45-degree sight line. It's a fully compliant application. It doesn't matter whether you reverse or drive out in forward gear onto the road, because it's not a main road or anything like that. And I'm just a bit of a loss at some of the conversations I'm hearing today from members of opposite parties. They are the party that doesn't like big government and nanny state, and now we seem to be mandating how people drive. Maybe planning should be assessing people's driving standards, prescribing walking routes and how they empty their bins. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I can confirm.
Can I just place an objection, Madam Chair? This is not a political discussion, and I don't think it's relevant for that to be brought up. Thank you.
People have the right to live in their houses and enjoy their houses, and if they need to get their bins out, they will make arrangements for being able to get their bins out. Let's trust the sensibility of the residents that will be living there, Madam Chair.
I totally appreciate that, yes. If we could keep the discussion to the application itself and ask meaningful questions when appropriate, that would be very appreciated.
We can confirm, sorry, that the space standards, national space standards are met with this application. I won't comment back on the bin and the car parking because they've been addressed by the case officer.
Thank you. Councillor Brisky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to query the policy compliance of the hip to gable conversion, because under party guidance for residential extensions, one of the key principles for an extension, EKP3, is that the conversion of a hip to gable conversion will normally be refused. So are we deviating from that here?
The hip to gable conversions are normally refused where it would unbalance a pair of semi-detached dwellings. In this case, number 94 already has a hip to gable, and therefore it would actually be rebalancing the pair.
Yes. Does anyone? Oh, yes. Councillor Lambert.
I just wanted to try and clarify a practical detail. There are 2 3-bedroom flats being created and 3 parking spaces. Has anything been said, or can we condition anything about some sort of parking plan? I mean, is it a free-for-all of who gets the parking spaces, so that one flat could actually dominate all 3, or will the flat have? Will one of the flats have 2 parking spaces and the other one only 1? In which case, that flat is not breaking the parking regulation, our recommended regulations, but the other one is. If you can just address that, please.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Lambert. So there is condition 3, deals with the parking, refuse and recycling, says it will be in accordance with the approved plans and shall be made constructed prior to the first occupation and remain in that form. In terms of the actual spaces, yes, one of the flats would be given one space, one would be given two, and that would come under the sales particulars and with the land registry details. So it'd be very clear which flat had which parking spaces allocated to it.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else they wish to ask? No. So can I then ask if we are minded to approve or dismiss the application? Yes, Councillor Rosehill.
I'm quite. I wouldn't say it's policy compliant because obviously the parking, but I'm happy to propose that we approve the application.
Oh, Councillor Richards. Okay, thank you. Can I? Yes. Okay, let's vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The recommendation is as per the report and the updates. So members are voting for, against or abstaining. So Councillor Allen?
For.
Councillor Amron?
For.
Councillor Brisky?
For.
Councillor Gray?
For.
Councillor Councillor Kazar?
For.
Councillor Lambert?
For.
Councillor Morris?
Against.
Councillor Quilty?
Against.
Councillor Richards?
For.
Councillor Rosehill?
For.
Councillor Smith? For. Councillor Green?
For.
That recommendation has been carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So item 6 of the agenda are the planning appeals. Can everyone confirm they've received their list of current planning appeals? Thank you.
Bear with me, let me just double
If you bear with us, we will.
there may be an update,
need
so
to-
if you can just bear with me. So thank you, Chair. Just through you, just in terms of a short update, we received the Longview appeal decision subsequent to these papers being circulated. That appeal was allowed, which to a degree is disappointing, but the inspector in the decision has laid some very clear markers in terms of the design that is to be expected on the site, which was the only real disagreement between two parties. It was an outline application. The inspector was confident that they could be resolved at the reserved matters application stage, but as I say, has laid some very clear markers over what is to be expected in terms of a high quality design for the site, and obviously officers will follow that through with any discussion should that come forward through subsequent pre-application or application. But I just wanted to update members because that came through subsequent to your paperwork being issued. Shenley. Yeah, it's a land rear of 49. It was I think it was a care home scheme, older person scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Item 7 is any other business the Chair considers urgent, which there isn't. And item 8 is the date of the future meeting. Our next meeting will be the 15th of January. And so I thank you this evening and I close the meeting at 7:08. Thank you very much.